Good morning and welcome again to Gin and Tonic. So today is our long-awaited discussion that I'm excited about, and we're doing GLP1s.
Yeah.
So Claudine, what is GLP1s?
Okay. So GLP1s is glucagon-like peptide. Okay. That sounds like a mouthful, and it is, even for us. So I think a lot of people associate it with these Hollywood people, sometimes like Oprah,
Yes.
who've taken the injection and lost the weight. And I think the most common thing it's credited for is dulling the food noise.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right.
So what people say when they go onto it is that whereas before they had all this food noise in their head and they couldn't ignore it, the food noise is gone, and so it's relatively easy to follow a good, healthy diet.
And it's difficult because diabetics have to navigate a lot of different what I can't eat, what I can eat, and so that's an important factor that I don't think is highlighted enough.
Yeah.
Okay, so what is GLP-1?
Okay, so long time ago there were these scientists who, and I thought they were American, but we actually Googled this and it turns out they're scientists from all over the world.
Very interesting. Women included.
Yeah, very much so. And I didn't realize scientists do that, but they went to the desert and they tested the saliva of a whole lot of creatures. So they tested the saliva of the Gila monster, and they figured out that there was a molecule in there, a peptide, exenadine, which enabled the Gila monster to eat only once a year and get enough nutrition from that.
Really?
Yeah.
Okay.
So what they did was they went to the lab and they recreated the exenadine, which was Byetta, the first GLP-1, which you injected twice a day. And it mimics what the human body produces naturally if you're not diabetic.
So this was done like how many years ago?
Yeah, so I think the Gila monster saliva story was even maybe 15 years ago.
Sure.
But the drug started coming to market, well, to South Africa, I want to say 10 years ago, 8 years ago. And then, so when I was just coming into practice, let's say the first year of GP practice, we had metformin and sulfonylureas and a few insulins. And then there was this explosion. So like forward to today, we've got tons of insulins, we've got tons of oral agents, S-glutes, we've got tons of GLP-1s.
A lot of options.
And then very excitingly, we're now getting GIPs, which is another, so tirzepatide is GLP-1 with a GIP.
Okay.
We don't have it in this country yet. Apparently we do on the black market, but on the real...
Not safe market.
Yeah, we don't have tirzepatide yet, but the long and the short is if you're diabetic, you haven't only lost insulin, you've lost GLP, you've lost GIP, you've lost amylin, and trying to manage a disease with just focusing purely on insulin isn't the whole answer.
So
it's not physiological, and this gives you more of a replacement of what's physiologically missing.
Okay.
Which is why it works so well.
It's the first time I've completely understood it and in that broader perspective. So GLP-1s, we're talking about the active ingredient being semaglutide, but it's known widely as Ozempic.
Yeah.
And then Wegovy.
So semaglutide sold as Ozempic is indicated in type 2 diabetes.
Okay.
I actually used quite a lot of my type 1s too, but that's a different discussion, and it's off-label. In type 1.
But you get good control.
Yeah,
okay.
For the same reason. The type 1s also don't have GLP-1.
That makes sense though.
And it really helps them have less lows and inject less insulin, which all around just helps the whole picture. But from a type 2 perspective, semaglutide is sold as Ozempic. From a weight loss perspective, semaglutide is sold as Wegovy.
Okay.
So they got registration for purely weight loss. You don't have to be diabetic, type 2, or even pre-diabetic. It's registered as a weight loss drug.
And it can be covered by medical aid. according to the, as far as I know,
It
with
can
the
be covered by
correct-
medical aid if medical aid.
Oh, with the right medical aid codes, and if you've got the right. Okay.
So that's the interesting
But
thing.
it gives you a-
I was at a talk last week, and they said that apparently Discovery Medical Aid do cover if you use the correct ICD-10 code for obesity.
Okay.
And then, ICD-10 coding is its own interesting phenomenon too. Yeah.
That's a whole nother
It's a
topic.
little bit like a maze.
So, with weight loss, I'm also assuming, you're going to get better control. Like you said, you're replacing it physiologically. So, even with weight loss, you're going to get better control from the diabetic perspective as well.
Correct, yeah.
And then less,
Yeah,
using
so I think-
less meds.
I think the frustrating thing that, especially, in this country, the majority of our patients find themselves in state care. Okay.
Yes,
And
that's not
insulin-
available.
Insulin as a medication causes weight gain.
Mm.
So then you get into this horrible cycle of you use more insulin to get better control, you gain more weight, you need more insulin, you gain more weight. So the GLP1s have shifted that really in a very big way. And instead of your type 2 patient, when they get to kind of the end of where the oral drugs are working, they can go to a GLP1 and actually gain so much more. The very sad part is how much these drugs cost. But in an ideal world,
It'll be accessible to all.
it is the answer for type 2 diabetes.
And Claudine, look, the main concern from all our patients, as well as, us as managing doctors, is side effects. So, what are we looking at and how do we manage them?
So when you first put someone onto a GLP-1, I try and have this conversation, but I think I fail as well. You have to warn them of the nausea. For some people, it is intolerable to the point that they will not take another dose. I generally give my patients the option of 3 anti-nauseas, depending on what they can afford, because there are some anti-nauseas that are phenomenal, but they're 50, 60 rand a pill, so not everyone can afford that. You need to be on an anti-nausea for at least a month to 6 weeks to tolerate the nausea. Nausea is the biggest side effect. Once they've tolerated that, and then they generally don't need the anti-nausea pill anymore, and they're usually fine. There are people who just, with any medication, they just don't want to be on. Yeah. Sarcopenia and muscle loss over a more longer period of time is a problem. And I think that's only more recently come to light with studies and things. And I do think it's something that has to be considered. So I would say there, like to almost preempt that, and exercise is the most underrated medicine. Okay, and so if you can focus on making sure that you're maintaining muscle, and then also make sure that you eat enough protein, you can mitigate for that up to a point. But I do think it probably depends individually on patients. It depends on what dose they're on, and I do think you need to be looking out for it.
And in terms of dosages, a lot of us, people want to start high and low, or what do we do with dosages?
Yeah, so even Wegovy, Novo Nordisk say start low, and you can either titrate up every month. So for example, Wegovy starts at 0.25, 0.5, 1, 1.5, 1.7, 2.4. It's quite a massive
And these
range.
are injectables
Yeah, once a week. Okay. I do know some doctors who say if your patient is losing weight, keep them on that lower dose. A, it's cheaper. B, less side effects until they plateau, and then only increase
That
dose.
makes sense.
Yeah.
And with Ozempic? That's now for the type 2s, you say?
With Ozempic, the same thing. I almost always, so interestingly, my type 1s, who are obviously their life depends on insulin, they're definitely on insulin, I never use more than 0.25 milligrams a week.
Okay.
And it's a game changer in that scenario. But then medical aid won't pay, so the patient has to be able to afford it. But for type 2s, generally, I will start at 0.25, titrate up to 0.5, 1 milligram, and see from there. But generally, they're on other oral agents as well, and escalute metformin, and
And so we've covered from the diabetic side. But now if you're looking at purely for weight loss, say we're looking at Wegovy, and we've got a lot of oral options for weight loss, like your Germans, etc. But is there like, for the diabetics, before we put them on Ozempic, what's our workup, or what are we looking at? What's uncontrolled enough for us to start them on, or what's your criteria to start a GLP-1?
So for me, from a type 2 perspective, it's where I go to now if they can afford it instead of insulin.
Okay, alright.
So once we get into hemoglobin A1C 3-month average around 10, unless the context is that they are now starting to lose weight, and they're becoming kind of metabolically unstable. So if they're losing weight and they are almost actually on the verge of DKA in a more, like I say, the metabolism's become deranged, those patients need insulin.
Okay.
But if they're not decompensating, we're in a place where we would usually go straight to insulin. If they can afford it, I will go straight to GLP-1.
Okay, alright, so that makes sense. So DKA is the diabetic ketoacidosis.
Yes.
And I mean, your HbA1c is your average sugar that we do on bloods every 3 months.
That's right.
So that will give us the idea whether the patient is controlled or not. And what's our ideal? The HbA1c?
So A1C is something we've used for quite a long time now, and particularly with type 1s, what we're looking more towards now is time and range.
Okay.
So
is that because of the glucose monitoring?
I think it's partly because of the glucose monitoring, but also because you can have an A1C. So you asked about ideal 6.57, okay? But you can have an A1C of 7, and you can have 30% time and range, 30 to 50% time and range.
So what does that mean?
So that means that a lot of your sugars are low, a lot of your sugars are high, and you're averaging out.
Okay, I get
at what seems to be okay. What we're wanting is what we're wanting. We can't always get rid of it, and generally, if I can even just improve someone's time and range, I'm happy.
So by saying time and range, you're saying 30% of that time and range is at the correct level.
Correct.
Alright, okay.
Yeah.
So then you're aiming for what time and range with type 1s?
Above 70%.
Alright.
So if you have an A1C of 7 with a time and range of 70%, that's good. But the A1C by itself doesn't tell you enough about time and range. So
for our type 2s, it's still A1C the base.
So in South Africa, we're still using A1C.
Okay.
And yeah, I suppose for type 2s, yes, we probably
it's
will
still safe
for time to come. It's an indicator, it's better than no indicator. But even for my type 2s, I find value, even if they just wear a CGM for 2 weeks. It just opens their eyes to what does this meal do to my sugar. So if they can see that 2 slices of bread takes them, for argument's sake, to 25 for 2 hours.
Right.
And then the next day they can see that a salad keeps them at 5, sugar of 5, then it's up to them. Do you know what I mean? The balls in their court.
And obviously you then have a validation of how you're feeling. So yes, I'm feeling terrible, but I can see it's because my sugar is high, or because that's really impactful. I think it makes a huge difference. And I know we did an episode on CGMs, but in terms of accessibility to CGMs, is it very accessible? Can we do it in GP rooms?
CGM is very accessible. It's just that medical aids don't want to pay for it in the broad. There are medical aids that are paying.
Okay.
Some medical aids will pay for type 1 adult for 2 weeks of the month. And then there are medical aids who pay for more, generally the higher plans. And then there are medical aids who don't pay for anything at all. It's been quite heartening because Jim's medical aid has come to the party and they're paying for type 1 children and adults for the whole month.
Oh, that's good.
Which that is very heartening. It is on a motivation basis, but the fact that we're getting yes to that motivation is very heartening.
No, that is. That's great news. Okay, so I think that's We've covered a lot of it. I think if there's any more questions you can leave it in the
And I think
comments below.
GLP1s, there are like people who get very angry about GLP1s, and there are people for whom it's been life changing, and there are some people for whom it didn't really work that well. So,
But I think that's all patients, and I also think that's all meds. Unfortunately, you know, medication can work brilliantly for one person and not for the other. And that's okay, because that's why we're here. I think it's best to then stick to one doctor, because I feel often you feel like it's the doctor's fault for prescribing that. But honestly, even with the Panado, I don't know how I'm going to react to it as compared to Protein going to react to it. And I feel like sticking with the same doctor, it gives us an opportunity to then change it to something that benefits you more, or work with you to find the best plan ahead.
Yeah, especially in this context of AI and Google. I do think, and I also think that it should be more of a partnership. So if you can find a GP that you can partner with, and you can see it as a long-term thing, and that you feel open enough to divulge all of your queries, your concerns, then you can work with each other, and knowing
100%.
that it is trial and error sometimes.
And I mean, these are important things. Like you said, it's going to decrease your chance of stroke, MI, heart attack, and then every other, your kidney function will
So that the
improve.
trials around semaglutide are so powerful. I mean, in terms of curve splitting very early on in the trials, decreasing, like you said, 3-point MACE, which is looking in trials at the endpoint of cardiovascular death, non-fatal MI, and non-fatal stroke. It's a very powerful measure of not just metabolic control, not just A1C, but actually preventing the complications of diabetes. Semaglutide has got amazing data in terms of that, preventing renal deterioration. Even patients who are in renal failure, reversing some of that renal failure.
Really? So it's improving your quality of life and giving it power back to you.
Non-alcoholic fatty liver disease, reversing, decreasing the incidence. It's incredibly powerful, and I think it speaks to how powerful the human physiology is. Because what the GLP1s are doing is replacing physiology that's broken. And the body is designed to fix itself.
And I mean, your physiology is your natural state. So essentially, it's going back to trying to mimic that natural way of getting your body better.
Yeah.
So you opened my eyes a lot. I now am a fan of GLP1s. And I think hopefully we'll get more patients that will want to come in and be open and honest, and we can make plans that work for them. That will be
tailor-made. Yeah.
Thank you so much for joining us today.
Have a good week.
And we'll see you next